Welcome to the Bucky call for this weekend, March 11 and 12. And we're going to continue with our reading of Grunch of the Giants. Joe, how are you feeling today? And what do you anticipate getting out of the call?
I'm feeling pretty good. A little bit tired, but I'm feeling good. I am looking forward to, progressing through Grunch of the Giants to continue to learn about our economic history, why we function the way we do, and build on previous weeks. I was a little bit late last week. And I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's different perspectives, regarding on education or just the economics or the basic understanding of Grunch of the Giants. So that's what I hope to take away from today, just to build on what we've been working on. And so that's where I am. Manu, how are you feeling? What would you like to take away from today?
Just waking up. I feel like I'm getting energized, and what I expect is really for us to progress and exploring what is going on today in light of what Bucky wrote years ago in the Grunch of Giants and the general principles of the universe, and see how we can align to create a better world. And how do you feel? What do you expect?
Wait, I'm not sure. Okay. Hi, hello, Manu. Thank you. Hi, Steve. Hi, Joe. Good to see y'all. And okay, I realize why I'm very excited having this meeting every Sunday. Yeah, this gathering here. It's not just about looking at what Bucky is talking about in all our sharings, right? I think the excitement is more about us discovering what can be done, what needs to be done, and then a lot of realizations to understand what's been going on in order to even rethink some of the things that we are doing. I think for me that is the excitement, and every week I'm looking forward to that. So here we go for today. And I just have one question. If anybody knows how Kelly is doing, it would be great to find out. If you all
Thank
can
you for
share.
asking that.
Yeah. And so over to you, Steve. How do you feel, and what would you like to take away today?
Well, it's the weekend for me, and this is a Saturday night for me, and I'm kind of dragging. So, but I'm looking forward to this. I sent several people out, all of you and several others, a link to a documentary that I saw today called Watson. This is a guy who co-founded Greenpeace back in the 60s, and then he left Greenpeace because it became too passive, and he started a thing called Sea Shepherds. And he actually went out and risked his life and limb to end illegal whaling and illegal fishing. And he's hired out, besides being a criminal, being wanted on Interpol as a result of all of his things. He just recently got a contract with Costa Rica to take his Navy. He's got Sea Shepherd in Germany, in I think he said 15 countries. And he's just really being aggressive. And he has a whole section at the end of this documentary on Spaceship Earth. But he says that Spaceship Earth is 60% water. And so really it ought to be called Spaceship Ocean. And it talks about how we need to take care of our water in order to be on this spaceship, that we're not the guardians of the planet. The guardians, the crew, are the whales and the plankton and the life on the planet. And we're just traveling along with it. They're benefactors. We are the beneficiaries of their benefits. It just really was a powerful thing showing. I mean, this guy had unbelievable guts, but it's all about Spaceship Earth, and that's exactly what we're talking about with Grunch of Giants. So we'll continue with our reading. I haven't heard anything from Kelly. Manu, did you WhatsApp Kelly or something? Have you talked to Kelly lately?
No, I think last time I spoke to Kelly is over a month.
Yeah, it was probably Wayne who heard back from him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
What
Wayne
is-
was the last one.
Yeah, he heard back from either Kelly or Ann, and he's doing well, but he's just not up to engaging in thoughtful conversation. That's what that's what the word was. Okay, good. John
Thank you.
decline in. Any other comments or questions?
Yes,
Hey,
thank
John.
you. Thank you for the update. Yeah.
All righty, cool. John sent a decline in, so that leaves us chickens to just read one with another. Hang on, I supposed to have a what's going on here? Hang on. Supposed to have a little orange bar at the top of the page. If it's not here in 3 seconds, it's not. So I've got to go back over here, go down here. There we go. That's where we want to be. And I must have gotten off of the target here. Okay, so we'll just,
I think,
what's that?
when we get started with it, or
Sure, you want to get started? Go ahead. Here we go.
the acceleration in technology enhancement of the living environment apparently accounts for marked life expectancy increases in post-World War I Canada, USA, Sweden, and Australia, United Kingdom, New Zealand, Netherlands, Japan. In these countries in 1968, the value of life insurance policies in force exceeded their respective gross national incomes. In the USA in 1970, there were 355 million life insurance policyholders. This being more policies than the citizens meant that many citizens hold several policies. In 1970, the assets of 1790 U.S. life insurance companies totaled $208 billion. Throughout the history of the United States of North America until 1952, the federal, state, and municipal bonds guaranteed by the tax collecting capabilities of those authorities, fortified by their ability to seize the property of tax evaders, were generally rated the most secure of securities to protect the USA population. Until 1952, the states and federal government required that all life insurance companies, all savings banks, and all trust funds invest only in notes and bonds of the ever suitably increasable tax-supported federal, state, municipal, and multi-state authorities, whose bonds were officially qualified by federally supervised authorities as being legal for trust funds. Including in the trust funds category were all the bank or lawyer administered wills and trust funds of all kinds, all employment or executive retirement funds of corporations, labor unions, or cooperatives, all savings banks and life insurance companies.
Okay, let's pause for a second. He's
Sure.
really beating on this insurance thing. He talked about it last time, and these are kind of eye-opening views about the assets and what they were used for. Any other comments or questions?
You know, I just realized that I think it was about a few years back, we were looking at ways for our own staff, yeah, to we had a couple of new projects coming up, so we were looking at, instead of going get funds outside, maybe our own people could participate in it, right? So our consultant, right? He actually advised us to do a co-op, to set up a co-op, right? And I said, okay, we said, okay, co-op, let's do that, right? But later on, I found out that the co-op operates very, very differently from a limited company, and that we literally can take investments, and make investments. The other thing is we can actually give out loans, and in it comes a time if we need to, we can actually be a bank. So I was like, wow, not a whole lot of people know that, right? But more now that I know what people have done with it, I'm going to have to relook at what it is that can be done with a co-op that can make sense of what isn't making sense. Yeah, but it's in our hands. So we are the 3 projects that we put money into didn't quite work, but the onus is still on us, and we are actually returning the money to all our, because there were just 3 things that happened. Like one, of course, is the COVID, the protests in Hong Kong, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm gonna have to think about this as we go on. I want to explore this together with our group here as to what in the world it means to have a co-op. Okay, this is a thought here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah. I mean, it's worth noting just the power these retirement funds have in general. I mean, that's placed things like CalPERS, and they invest in people like Carlyle Group and people like that. So it's all tied together in some way, shape, or form. And I think what Bucky's really laying out here is the interconnectedness of how it relates to, federal and state and municipal governments.
Yeah.
It's kind of depressing, but
yeah. This book is challenging, keeping a positive attitude, and the way he continues to expose things we really ought to know about, and yet most people aren't aware of it all. What were you about to say?
Well, I'm falling back on my stoicism. That's what I'm saying. The dichotomy of control, like I can only control certain things. Because this is a lot. This is a lot.
Yeah.
Something just occurred to me here that, since we can, as a co-op, we can loan, right? We can give out loans, then maybe we should start the, you've heard of Grameen Bank, right? I think they started in, was it? And I understand that now Grameen Bank is also in the U.S. giving out this micro lend to the women in both Pakistan, was it, and of course now in the U.S. Maybe we can use that for that purpose. Let me think.
Yeah, microloans are very. That's a very interesting area, but it's also very complex. So they've been successful in some circumstances, but they've also failed in others.
Yeah.
And I also dealt with a microloan lender. I think that they'll get better at it, especially with phones. But that's a tough business.
Right, because I think because right now we are working very closely with a couple of other women, and quite a number of them have got these initiatives going, for women to get started with at least earning an income. And the other thing that can be looked into is to see if maybe we can collaborate with there's this gentleman in Indonesia. He has got a system that makes it possible for the unbankable to have access to bank accounts, to be able to, those that literally could not even have bank accounts, to receive money, for when they sell stuff and so on, like the hawkers and little small traders and so on. Maybe I should talk to him and see how we can come together on that one. I'm just thinking out loud on this one.
I think that's fantastic, actually, and I mean, I think that those are, those types of endeavors, get people out of extreme poverty, and I think that those are type of initiatives. Again, I've seen different parts in dealing with a micro lender at one particular moment in time, one micro lending bank, just how much in need these individuals are that actually rely on these microloans, and they can become more efficient with it now. They have been over the past years. Everybody has phones, so the unbanked can become banked. Yeah. So
Okay, all right. Okay, just so
that's
you
great.
know, these kind of things are coming up from my meetings with you. Okay.
no, that's fantastic. I mean, that would be something that
I love the
definitely would
I love
pursue.
the brainstorming. I think the brainstorming is critical. How I'm doing this because I want to make my life better. And I want to make the lives better for the people around me. So brainstorming is powerful. Let's continue with that for sure.
Yeah, and I have some stuff that I could actually dig up from micro lending that I used to look at.
Good.
So I could definitely figure out some things there.
I do think,
So go ahead, please.
yeah, I just do think from listening to you guys, quite a few words came out to define, to characterize micro lending. I noted down limitation, focus, trust, and transparency. When I say limitation, is that there is no leverage, there's no reserve, there's no fractional
Bank.
reserve banking, things like that. So those are 4 words that I just noted down. I wanted to share with you guys. Focus.
Can you repeat that,
trust,
please? Can you repeat, please?
Focus, trust, transparency,
Okay.
and one-to-one, meaning no fractional reserve banking,
And I
no
think that
leverage, no leverage.
no leverage. And I think that's profound.
It is, but it's also subject to shocks.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah,
so
but if his focus is not subject to shocks.
right. Well, not economics. Well, I mean, I guess it would be an economic shock. If it would be subject to let's just say a natural disaster.
Yeah. Can we add to
Like
that,
that.
to those words, also well regulated? But that if you regulate too much, it becomes heavier, isn't it?
Well, and that is not really when you see the one-to-one and the whole concept of leverage. If I have a bank who has 10% reserve and they're creating loans on a 10% reserve and they loan me $100, it means they've got $10 out. If I don't pay the $100, that's $90 out. Who the heck is responsible for that? It goes on the whole system. Whereas if I'm on a one-to-one loan and I loan you loan me $100, if I don't pay it, it's just between you and me. And there's no system involved in that. So I'm pondering what that means, because I know when I studied at Grameen Bank for a while, about 10 or 15 years ago, and there was a cooperative aspect to that. That's what I thought Anne's comments were so interesting. There was some cooperative aspect to that where other people in the lending community wanted to make sure that if someone got their loan to buy a cow, that everybody in the communities used the cow's milk to make sure the person got the money back in order to pay that loan back. There seemed to be a cooperative aspect to it that isn't present with this concept of leverage that Manu brings out of the reserve deposit lending.
I like that.
No. So these are just thoughts. But it is kind of funny because we just had the big news in the U.S. is that the Silicon Bank in San Jose, California, had a big in that bank and as I've got into one background article on it, they were doing gangbusters during COVID. The social media and all of these computer companies were just flourishing during the COVID, and so they had a ton of money, and they wanted to put their money someplace, so they bought bonds, but the interest rates were down, and they bought these bonds at the low rates, and then all of a sudden the Fed has been driving the interest rate up, and now all of a sudden their 600 billion bond portfolio, 600 million bond portfolio is worth a fraction of what it was. And so they can't borrow against it to pay their requests for withdrawals. So the bank crashed. The bank crashed because the bonds they'd invested in were worth less because the Fed was driving the interest rate up, and that created a crisis in that bank that's not systemic. Of course, there could be systemic repercussions, but that's very interesting.
But isn't that exactly in terms of thinking and really practicing that the notion of phase and timing, they miss it completely. Let me explain what I mean. That Silicon Valley Bank, actual fact that the assets were up because money was so cheap, and the cheap money benefited first the technology sector. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
The cheap money benefited the technology sector. But when you have cheap money, low interest rate, the price of bonds goes up.
Exactly.
All right. Now they made a lot of money, and they wanted to secure it. Right? There they go, buying exactly what is high during their phase. You want to save money for lean days. So they might have had to diversify more their savings instead of just going buying only bonds.
Yeah.
And the Fed tightening, that is screwing bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's favoring treasuries and screwing bonds, because preference is for cash now.
It'll be interesting to see what regulators do. I mean, I don't know if it's too late to bail them out. I don't know what the situation is, but I'm, that's what may occur. I heard that being kicked around, and that would be, I think, well, we'll get back to the old idea of moral hazard. They're talking about it being contagion and things along those lines. We'll see. We'll see
I heard
what happens.
The Federal
But I
Reserve.
had some.
Go ahead.
Yes, I was just going to add that I had some people saying that the regulator was very prompt into taking them into, how will I say it, shutting them off.
Well,
Okay,
on Friday, the Fed came in and took over all the insured accounts. That's $250,000 or less. They took over all those insured accounts and guaranteed those accounts to stand in for them. Anybody that had an account bigger than 250 grand is hanging out there. And
yeah, but you know what? All those guys got out. Like
the problem,
Deal got all his money out.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I was trying to say is that the problem is that it was a linchpin. This bank is in the lemon moment of today. Nobody knows. Given the extreme leverage of the whole economy worldwide, is this going to start another
Another, yeah, that's
global crisis, I don't know.
We're going to see on Monday.
well, yeah. Jeez, I hope not.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. I think we're right
Okay,
here.
and we are.
Okay.
In the post-1933 pullout from the absolute economic crash years of 1929 to 1933, the U.S. Congress approximately unanimously enacted a number of measures essential for coping with the economic errors clearly manifest in the post-mortem studies of the Great Crash. Essential to the correction of those errors was the establishment of absolutely interconstant price, wage, rent, and interstate controls. Profits were not only permitted but welcomed. They had, however, to be inventively attained by producing more better goods, more satisfactory services, etc., for the same or lesser amounts of energy, time, and materials invested. Thorough review of those 1930 to 1942 economic climate years, events, and their utter undoing in the 1952 is clearly related in the chapter Legally Piggly in my book, Critical Path. In 1952, the 20-year moribund GOP regained control of the political initiative and immediately eliminated all price, rent, interest, and wage controls. It also passed laws allowing insurance companies, savings banks, and retirement funds, and all trust funds in general to invest in common stocks, preferred stocks, and corporate bonds. This also brought about the formation of a myriad of investment trust funds. It did not, however, allow the U.S. government or any of the states, counties, or municipalities to invest in the enormous Social Security automatically tax collected individual workers fund or any other of its future committed economic responsibility funds to be invested in any other than its own USA government, state, county, or municipality dollar savings accounts whose purchasing equity was being ever depreciated by inflation. With wholesale industrial,
I think in Critical Path, I think he's purported that really what got us out of the crash of the 40s was World War II. That if it hadn't been for World War II, we'd probably still been struggling through that, the results of the crash. I think he said that in Critical Path, if I remember right. Anyway.
But I think it is transpiring here what his preferences are, because you always have, especially in the US, this tussle between control and deregulation.
Mm-hmm.
And at least in those years, the Republican were the one that wanted deregulation a lot. And you can see here that he was a big supporter of, I wouldn't say big, he was sympathetic to Roosevelt's control. Am I reading right?
No, I think you're reading right. In 1952, correct.
Yeah, it said through the review of those climate years, even in the author doing, like between up to 1942, which is basically Roosevelt's years, there were a lot of controls. You could only, invest the tax money and the savings into very, very specific vehicles, which the Republican undid when they came to power in 1952 with Eisenhower. Steve, am I right?
I'm
I
not,
believe you're right.
I'm not clear on that. I know that the World War II started in 42. So, and I know that Eisenhower was a Republican back in the 50s. And I remember I was a young kid, but I was all about I like Ike. And these ideas of how a nearly dead, that's what moribund means, nearly dead Republican Party, the GOP is the Republican Party in America, regained control of political initiative. And so that was Eisenhower, and then other Republican presidents. What's interesting right now is there's a big move. A lot of people think we need to go back to the Roosevelt era, that America is ready for a Roosevelt kind of, using, taxing the rich and actually fixing our country instead of the current trends. So I'm not sure exactly what this all means.
But that is it. I know there are a lot of views of those years. Some people think that Roosevelt, it was theft from the American people.
There are a lot of different perspectives, and
Well,
it's
I mean,
not just these.
he confiscated gold,
Mhm.
and immediately after confiscation, he changed the price. That is falsifying the books. You understand what I'm saying?
You're saying Roosevelt did that?
Yep. Roosevelt, what he did, he confiscated gold. Immediately he came to power. He made it illegal for Americans to hold gold.
Well, he
So,
couldn't do that by himself. Congress had to go along with him.
yeah, whatever. I mean, that was his party coming to power. You never come to power alone. And gold was about, I think, $20 or something of sort an ounce. And overnight, after confiscation, gold was at 35. So 50% increase. So that allows you to rewrite the books and to confiscate means to do things. And with those were in place until 1974, 73, yes, or 74 with Ford. President Ford is the one that allowed Americans again to hold gold. It was illegal in the U.S. to hold, for a commoner to hold gold.
Wow.
So, but I'm not taking sides here. I'm just saying that it's here. He's really expressing his views.
Yeah. I agree with you. He's expressing views.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what it all means. I don't know how to integrate it. So I'm ready to continue reading to see what point he's trying to make.
It's a difficult thing to integrate because, well, we'll come to it. I mean, these 50 years are to analyze. Everybody has their own perspective and selects their own data when analyzing these things. Now, I do trust Bucky's data more than most others, but it's a very complex time in the world.
Yeah. But imagine that we're facing the same thing today with central bank digital currencies.
Yes,
The same thing.
that's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's going to be the same. And it's always us that give government those opportunities. We cry.
Yeah. Let's continue reading.
Yeah. With wholesale industrial prices free to escalate through though protested against by the U.S. Eisenhower through Carter presidents, retail prices, wages, and corporate share prices as traded on the stock market swiftly escalated in response. So-called inflation was inevitable. What the Colossus media call inflation is, of course, deflation of humanity's buying power. inflation does not increase the true value nor produce more or better goods.
Yeah.
All talk of the federal, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I just agree. Inflation
I
is
agree
theft.
too.
In
Yeah,
fact,
yeah,
it's
it's
almost
excellent point.
Orwellian. And I'd never thought of this before, but inflation actually means humanity's buying power going down, depreciating. And we call it
But who does that?
inflation.
That's true, and who gets hurt the most?
Yeah,
The ones that are on the
the little
margins,
guys.
because they can't afford the staples that they need.
Yep. And yet we call it inflation. That is so funny.
Right.
I've never thought of that before.
Okay, I have a question, yeah?
Yeah.
Because this is one of those things I couldn't fathom because first and foremost, yes, the poor would be the one most badly affected, right? Then I'm also looking at the countries like Finland, where you like in Malaysia, we have what we call the T20, the top 20 in terms of the social strata, economic strata, right? Then you have what we call the medium 40s and the poor B40s. We call them B40s in Malaysia. So I would think that in countries like Finland, I don't think they really have a poor, category. It's probably all upper middle income upwards, right? So that would be Finland. So when you're looking, because this inflation is always there, right? Even for Finland. But the country is thriving, the people, because I've been to Finland, I've met a lot of, I work very closely with people in Finland. So now I'm looking back at what's happening, let's say in US and even my country, right? Because we've lived through many decades, right? And we keep talking about inflation and how little money can buy today, like the 100 ringgit can buy versus back in the old days where 100 ringgit can really get you a lot of things. But then when I look back at my time when I was a kid, all the way to maybe around the 80s, yeah. Yes, the money was a lot bigger there, but most of us couldn't afford anything. I'm just trying to put it out there because I need to make sense of this. Yeah, I don't know how to make sense of it. So like when we were young, I think we this is what we do, right? To go and buy in the coffee shops. We have this lower cost. It's not a cafe, it's a shop that sells with stalls selling food, right? So in order to save 10 Malaysian cents, to say fry this, the flat rice noodles, okay? We would bring our own eggs to save 10 cents. And they would allow us to bring our own eggs so that, and they'll charge us 10 cents less, or otherwise they would have charged 10 cents more for that fried thing with an egg. And so that was the way life was back then. Yes, it was very, very big, but we literally couldn't afford anything. But today, yes, the money is really, really small. But if you look around, most people have got 3 cars, 4 cars, and this is middle income earners. Okay. Even the poor can afford motorbikes. Back then, you'll be on bicycles or you're literally on buses. You can't afford even to buy a motorbike, right? They literally can, they own bikes and they can go to work and literally earn a living. And if you live in KL, your income is higher and chances of growth and all that is much better. So all houses have got 3 TVs, yeah. And I teach the middle income students because where I live, it's middle to upper income area. And the middle income earners, the kids, the parents, literally holidays, they can travel overseas, they can travel for holidays. And so I asked this question to the kids, I said, how many of you have traveled more on the plane than on the public bus? Do you know the number of hands that go up? It's literally like almost all hands. And these are kids and teenagers. And teenagers, yes, the guys can travel on the public buses, but generally the girls, the parents would not allow them to go on. Neither would I allow my daughters to go on a public bus, not in Malaysia. Okay. So I'm like, okay, so how do I make sense of this inflation thing when back then money was big and we couldn't afford anything, and now money is a lot smaller, and the middle class is like increasing, and the poor can also, like in the smaller towns, the villages, you see really big houses there as well. So yeah, I'm trying to make sense of that one.
Can I ask you a question, Anne?
Sure.
Okay. The story that you're telling us says there's something missing.
Yes, correct. I don't know what it is, how to explain that. Yeah.
Okay. Have you heard about something called debt?
Yes, correct.
Can you tell me the ratio of debt to the gross product worldwide?
No, I don't know.
It's huge.
So what you're saying is that the debt is the one that's allowing this
That's it.
to happen.
Yeah, the guy that you think that is a middle class is swimming on debt. The day that you take a pin and you puncture the balloon, you're gonna see who's swimming naked. And
Right.
my guess is huge. It's a huge number. The middle class is being slaughtered in the world. It's being slaughtered, not only in the U.S., but everywhere else. Everywhere, the standard of living is visibly coming down. Kiyosaki said, wealth is measured in how long you can survive not working. How long can you sustain your living standard not working? How long do you think from year to year, if you had plotted that onto a graph for the past 20 years, do you think that? Another statistic that is really interesting I was seeing yesterday is that in the past, I don't know how many years, but at least 20 or 30 years, wages have increased 300%. Housing has increased 1,000%.
Education has gone up even more.
Yeah.
$1 trillion.
So the thing is that you are 3 times poorer than 30 years ago.
Okay, so let's see.
I don't know if the data was 30. It was, the guy was comparing inflation, the CPI, to the Case-Shiller index, Joe.
The housing index.
Yes, and then it took that, I don't know how many years back, but it's a very interesting statistic. And the same thing that we saw some week ago when we're discussing about how much does it cost to buy a house? How much income do you need to buy a house? The measure many years ago was 1/3 of your income devoted to your home, buying your home.
Right.
That is, you need your 3 times your annual income was enough for you to buy a home. And then we realized that, I think you, Joe, were giving that statistics that today it is 7 times or 8 times. I don't know what it is. Or was it Steve?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I forget. I think it might have been Steve.
Okay, just continue. I have it somewhere. I will give you the exact number. But that is a general thing that is really hard for people to make it out there. The appearance is that of abundance, but there is no robustness. There's no the fragility is very high. If there were any fragility index, it would be very high.
Okay, thanks for that one. Let me have a thought on that, yeah? Because there's this, yeah. Okay, never mind. Thank you very much, Manu. All right, yeah.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay. All talk of Federal Reserve rediscount rate increases acting as inflation retardant is in fact only rationalization camouflage for escalating bank usury rates. Though a Federal Reserve interest rate increase may produce a momentary deflection in the rate of inflation curve, it never does any more than that. There is no evidence whatsoever that the Federal Reserve rediscount rate increases successful arrest inflation.
Well,
This being so,
somebody should have told that to the government before they started these increased raises after in January of this year after COVID, because there's been a lot of talk about how inflation only hurts poor people.
Mm.
And it doesn't do,
well, right,
the guys with the money doesn't bother them.
that's true.
Yep.
I mean, it
Because
is very
because
true.
he moved his money a long time ago from inflation sensitive stuff to
Mm.
safety. Money flows from one party to the other. That was another thing that I was going to talk about. You have a common pot, that is the GDP of the world, but the exchange is between part of the world to another part of the world. And money is always flowing. And the smart guy, those guys, they're smart, they already moved their stuff. That's why inflation that is perverse doesn't affect less the house.
Right. Want to continue?
There was a time it did work. I mean, I don't know. I mean, going back to Paul Volcker, I mean, I remember watching the news when I was a little kid, and then just seeing what rates were, they were 10-12%, and I mean they got up to 18, I think, or 19 at one point.
They got up to 24. I was in the 80s. I was investing with 24% interest.
Yeah, I mean, so at some point there were interest problems, and prior to that, and I have to go back, after Nixon took us off the gold standard and everything, he did, if I remember correctly, and Steve, you would know better than I, but he instituted price controls, and is that correct, Steve?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, but Joe, let me say something there. He instituted price control on things that are not effective. Where did the money go to? The money went to speculation options. You can see the future options and future market exploded.
Fair enough.
So money supply was just being created. Was being inflated. That was the first thing that I want to say. The second thing is the debate today and the pain that we have is whether you have soft landing or crash. And manipulating the small is like, the Fed is behaving like if the direct if the how do you call it, how do you call that, the rate that the Fed said? What's the name for it?
The discount rate or the direct,
or whatever that they serve, where the rudder, of a ship. We are today in that the real interest rates are negative. We know that, right? They're far negative. The inflation that you feel and that I feel today is at least double digit. Go and check. Is at least double digit. It has nothing to do with the CPI. So if you want to look at the real interest rate and you take then the nominal interest rate, you take out inflation, the real interest rates are way negative. So the only way for this thing to happen is to allow a crash.
Hmm.
And nobody want a crash. I mean, no political guy want a crash to happen under the watch. So what do they say? They do. When talking about Paul Volcker, remember that he needed the alliance. Now, what people don't know is that Volcker wasn't appointed by Reagan. It is
Carter.
Carter. And Carter paid the price of his presidency. He wasn't reelected because he's allowed tight policies. And during the campaign, actual fact, Reagan was against tightening. That's what people don't know. Up to the elections in 1980, Reagan was against tightening. It's Carter who said, I don't care. Really, I really think that is the most underrated president in the United States.
I agree with that.
Yes. He puts the presidency into it, you know, like he say, I don't care, I'm not going to, but this needs to be fixed. And the American economy has to crash. And he crashed and he lost the presidency. And there come Reagan riding onto it, and then it's deflated. And what does he do next? It's reflated.
Hmm.
He reflated it. And the American economy has been forever inflated since then. It's been 40 years now. And it's worldwide. I mean, those policies have become pervasive in the world. Whether it had to go in cycles. And the question was, what are the boundaries of the cycles for us to be able to progress? It does this going up. I don't know if I'm confusing you more or I'm saying anything that makes sense, but
You're making perfect sense.
So I'm wondering, so if we were to go back and have that crash, so then does that mean then that's where we are at? We are all poor, you know?
well, that's why we're going to, because if they are increasing interest rates, everybody is expecting a crash. The question is, soft landing means soft crash. Hard landing means real crash. We were having a hard crash in 2005 to 8, and with money creation, money quantitative easing, it was softened. But since then, the same problem is now, because nothing was done about the system. The problem is now at least double. Yeah. I found the statistic that we're talking about in terms of housing. And
Yep. I'm writing
yes,
things down.
between 1937 and 2021. In 1937, the median income in the U.S. was $1,700. And in 2021, the median income was $44,225. But the ratio of the housing cost to median income went from 2.4 to 7.89. So 2.4 in 1937. It was even in 2000, it was still 2.83, by the way. So the price of housing in the US between 1937 and 2000 in real term was pretty stable. From then, in the last 20 years, it's gone from 283 to 789. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's how the income has been eroded And the price of housing, inflation has gone up.
So the what needs to be done then is to keep price down, and yet everybody has wealth, and nobody has figured that out. I should look at
Well,
Finland more.
it's I don't think it's even that simple too. I mean, because deflation with it, has its own consequences. Not that I'm saying it's a bad thing, not to say that prices don't need to come down, but people do have to pay salaries. And so, businesses have costs. And so when you have deflation and your prices keep dropping, you can't meet your costs, and businesses actually can't necessarily get higher. So it's a balancing act.
Yep.
But
Thank
once
you.
you're taking that dip,
I think the fundamental question that we have to is that who is causing inflation? Who? It is perpetrated, that is the market. Who is the market? Or who in the market is really causing inflation?
The wealthy.
No, the answer is the reckless spending, yes, by the industrial
complex.
Yes,
Military
industrial complex. That's what is happening. I mean, every day we see wasteful. Every politician that comes does wasteful spending and careless about really looking at how to keep the, doesn't care about, doesn't have any long-term vision. That's all.
Right. That's absolutely true.
Let's continue to read here and see if we can get Bucky's point completed here. I think we're there with there's no evidence.
There's no evidence whatsoever that Federal Reserve rediscount rate increases successfully arrest inflation. I read this, I think. This being so,
He repeated himself, Joe. He repeated himself.
Okay.
He said it never does any more than that. Then he repeats himself with that statement. Then he continues, this being so. Go ahead.
Okay. This being so, the continuance of such interest rate increases ostensibly to combat inflation, I can't see that, is actuated by the private enterprise controlled and deceivingly misnamed Federal Reserve bank system must in historical respect be identified as a fraudulent means for increasing the profits of the banking system. There you go, Minot. When Nixon cut loose the U.S. dollar from the U.S. government in 1933 fixed $32 an ounce relationship to gold, the U.S. citizen dollar equity declined precipitously. The last third of a century of overall stock market prices advances in direct correspondence to the role of inflation in business pricings in general has produced ever widening but false gaps between people's government fund equity values and the portfolio of world around stock market values of the securities of the private enterprise system. Had the U.S. government in 1952 been allowed by the U.S. government itself, which did the granting, to invest their Social Security and other appropriated funds in Fortune's leading 100 companies' common shares, as were all the fund managers of all within the USA trust funds, life insurance companies, and investment trusts with their funds. And the 1982 value of the U.S. government tax collected Social Security and other funds would permit the U.S. to extend all manner of social benefits to all its people. Hopefully to prevent
just a note. Do you understand what happened? What happened, Joe and Steve, you're American. What happened to America between 1952 and 80.
A lot. I mean,
But
it
what
wasn't just,
was
I mean,
what was pivotal?
moving off the gold standard.
But that is to me
pretty-
is a consequence. What caused the move out of a gold standard? What drained U.S. reserves?
Part of it was military spending.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it was, some of it was Social Security.
Yeah, it was. You're right there. In my opinion, there were three things: 2 wars, Korea and Vietnam.
That too, yeah, very good. I'm sorry.
Okay, and then the Great Society.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so all of those require big outspend by the government, essentially, right? And in the general account of a country, that is the balance of payment of the U.S. that will reflect. And the reserve of balance of payment of U.S. was that the U.S. had 90% of all the gold in the world in 1944, at Bretton Woods. That's why the U.S. made the rule. And everybody accepted that, 1 ounce of gold is worth 35 gold dollars. In 1971, August 1971, that window was closed. That is, the U.S. changed money in 1971 officially, was already happening. So the dollar of 1965 is not the same dollar of 1975. The dollar of 1965, Steve, was what you call the silver dollar, right? Talking to Steve.
Yeah, we had silver
Steve.
dollars back then.
Yes. That was it. It was worth, what it was.
Manu, I've got a question here because this gold-backed currencies, okay, or the wealth of a country, or whether it's silver-backed and all that stuff, it's still human-made, right? And so because it's a human construct, there can be other ways of doing it where it will make a whole lot more sense. And because right now, people keep saying that, pegging it against gold was the way to go, but it's still a human construct, right? So the world can still come up with another economic system that makes a lot more sense, to take care of all these issues. I know somebody's got to do it, yeah. Like I said, there's a group of people that are looking at having an economic system that's not based on debt, right? So then if that's the case, then literally people will have to be able to create wealth without debt. So what's that going to look like?
It's not possible.
Right.
You cannot create any, because debt, the dual of debt is what? What is the dual of debt?
Wealth, yeah.
It's trust.
Trust, okay.
Yes, the dual of credit. Yeah, it's trust.
Yeah.
Credit or debt is the same, depending on which party you're talking. But the dual of that is trust. Because nobody can ever produces everything that he needs in the exact quantity that he needs at the time that he needs them. Therefore, there got to be a system that allows the exchange of goods and services to allow us to live a time. This is a fundamental principle. And I can only give what I have away if I trust that I'll have it back or have something equivalent back. That's where trust comes in. Right? Gold has been interesting because it doesn't have what you call counterparty risk. But it's still that somebody can rob you of your gold. So we didn't have technology to do whatever before. Today we have a technology. The question is, are the forces in play going to allow it to happen? In other words, you can have blockchain and gold. So a currency based on those two. But the problem with blockchain is that it takes power from government away, and no government will ever allow it.
Right.
They will better use blockchain in a centralized way to control you better.
Right.
Mm.
So that's our problem today. There's technology today, but it's not going to be allowed practically.
Before we continue reading, I just thought I would throw in a little personal aside. Back in the 80s, there was a big thing about inflation, and that's when interest rates were at 24%, and I was investing then and making good money. And with 24% money, nobody could believe it. But I bought some gold. I paid $648 an ounce for that gold, and a week later it was worth $340 an ounce. But I just checked on the price of gold today. It's $1,872 an ounce.
Mm.
So
No, but to measure the real value of gold, see what you can buy.
Yeah.
2,500 years ago, a gold will buy, I don't know if 2,500, let's just say 2,000 years ago, it will buy a Roman, wherever citizen, it will buy them a toga, sandals, and something else. Today, an ounce of gold will buy you a suit, will buy you your briefcase, will buy you a tie and shoes. So more or less, the value of gold is constant because you can't create gold. There's no artificial gold.
I've actually done some research for the same thing on housing, that the price per square foot of housing per ounce of gold has basically stayed constant since the 1820s into the current market. The one thing that's changed is that in America, we've got bigger and bigger homes, but in terms of square foot of house, it's been constant for 100 years, allowing for seasonal fluctuations.
Okay.
Shall we continue reading?
Yep.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The January 1982 value of the U.S. government, our government's up to minute paid in Social Security and other tax collected government committed funds are now stashed away only in ink figures in the U.S. Treasury Department books. Completely bereft of that funds, $32 per ounce linkage with gold, as arbitrarily severed by the Republican president of the United States without authority from the U.S. Congress and only on the advice of media-unidentified non-government others with whom he met in a secret two-day conference on Minot Island and Gilkey Harbor, Islesboro, a Penobscot Bay, Maine Island. Is he, after most of the gold had been withdrawn from the KentuckyHills vaults to meet negative international balances of trade brought about by oil imports.
Let me just
I don't
interrupt you.
know.
I just
Yeah, I
how-
don't remember that. I never heard of
You
that.
can't remember. I was going to ask you how many American, even historians, know this. I don't know how Bucky got this detail.
I've
but
never,
it's
I don't know
quite
either.
amazing.
That can you put that in the chat?
sure.
Because I got to be honest. Like, I mean, the one you always hear about is Jekyll Island.
That's right. I've heard about Jekyll Island.
No, but
But
no, Steve, not just take the whole paragraph. You know, from in January to the oil import. I think that is very important. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Just copy that and put in the chat. It's very important.
Yeah, I think I got it, but I'm going to go one more time. Okay, here we go.
It's amazing.
It only got to oil imports brought about by oil. Oh, that took the whole paragraph. It's all
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's continue, Joe.
okay.
Page, right?
Next page. Yeah. If, since their inspection a half century ago, the tax deductions for Social Security had been invested in leading common stocks by a consortium of Merrill Lynch grade investment houses, the majority of U.S. senior citizens would now be multimillionaires. The advertising industry, the brokers, the banks, the conglomerates, the shipping business, and labor unions have all insinuated their money making or wage equity capital equalization. Can you make that bigger, Steve? It seems like it's smaller right now.
Maybe you're tight.
I think
somebody else, you know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe you do that. I have to go back to before. Sorry about that. Oh, wait a minute. No, that works. Okay. Equalization into complex price increasing. All the while, the actual basic costs of nature's cattle's calves, hide making from the photosynthetically sun-impounded hydrocarbon-rich vegetarian energy has not increased one iota. Inventors have greatly reduced the manufacturing costs accomplished only by machinery whose installation costs require large capital sums. What we have expected are very large sums of others' money being commanded by the moneymakers, all at the expense of individual human beings who do not command such sizable funds, discouraging their enterprise and initiative. When in 1920 I bought my $50,000 life insurance policies, the best U.S. Navy officers' shoes cost $4 a pair. Civilians had to pay $5 for first-class leather shoes. Fancy made-to-order Cordovans cost $7 a pair. In the 60-year interim, the cows have not improved the quality of their hides. Automated shoe manufacturing processes have not improved the shoes. In fact, the BTUs, British thermal units, per kilowatt of electricity required to operate the shoe production machinery has continually decreased. He talks about this in the past. But money-making businesses has gotten the price increased to $50 a pair. To do so, after each of their arbitrary price increases solely for a greater profit, they have had to share a minimum of their profit with their labor unions, else the workers could not buy the shoes. If you are not a labor union-backed wage earner, you simply pay more and more for the same shoes, which again means that those manipulating large amounts of money are robbing you.
Let me ask you a question, Joe.
Please.
to everybody. Let's just say we are in an economy of 5. And then
5 people.
or 4 here. And then I employ Joe to produce a good that is sold in this economy. How much, and this economy has many cycles. How much do you think that I will ultimately pay Joe?
I'm hoping you're a good guy. Not much above my costs, right?
Well, that's Susan, you are in it. How will you pay Joe?
Oh, how will they pay Joe?
The more you pay Joe, the more he has to spend with us. The less you pay Joe, the more you have to tax us to cover his food stamps.
That's another answer. But from an entrepreneur's point of view, what is it? Let me give you what I think that most people will do. I will pay Joe enough for him to see tomorrow, but not enough for him to get rid of me, to get away from me.
It's the old
Right.
company store approach. Yeah, in fact, you'll run the company store that he goes and spends his food money in, so that you make a
Yes.
profit on the money that he.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just enough.
This is
It
the old.
is very much in the, I don't know if any of you have read The Alchemy of Air. It's a book that Susan, The Alchemy of Air. Basically talking about the Haber-Bosch process. It's a book that Susan recommended. I don't know if.
Or you could read that book, or you could just listen to Tennessee Ernie Ford's song about the company store. I owe my soul to the company store.
Okay.
Well, I realize I've been paying my people all wrong.
It's okay to pay your people more.
That'll be
and
an
you have to
interesting
own-
Monday morning conversation.
It's okay to pay them more. You have to own the store that they go spend their money at. Then you're okay.
No, but it
Okay.
depends on your aim, Anne. If your aim was that you want everybody in your enterprise to grow,
Yeah.
then your pay structure will reflect that. It will be the one that you are paying. But in most cases, it is the small interest, as Steve said, running the small store. And when greed come into it, when big bank, when big conglomerate, when big corporate start behaving like that, the social impact can be pretty severe. In that a larger and larger portion of the population is left behind. They are living just for the city, like Steve Wonder said. Living just enough, just living for the city. You know that, I'm sure Steve has played that song many times.
What the one that's going through my head right now, Manu, is John Sebastian, Hot Time, Summer in the City. Back of my neck getting dirt and gritty.
Yeah.
Cool beans. I'd like
Okay.
to get
We
as far
continue?
into this as we can and get through these depressing chapters.
Yes.
This is definitely not a pick me up.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
You are
I
either, you know that?
think you're up. I think you're up a little. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just there. The stock market reflects. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some shoes better. What's the worst?
I think you were there, Joe.
Oh yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
which again means that those manipulating large amount of money are robbing you.
That's where we left off, is right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's
The
pick up.
stock markets reflect these price increases. Since the shoes are no better and often worse, the net of it all is that the same shoes require 10 times more of the individual's paycheck dollars. So I am being robbed by the system and my government is unable to protect me. In fact, the present administration of my would-be people's government is being conducted by those who have been robbing me. They have become utterly callous in their viewpoint of rationalized selfishness and based on the economic assumption of not enough for both you and me. Wherefore they look out for only themselves. These are the people who are who are even now maneuvering toward an atomic war exchange in which all the unemployed and poor in general are the only ones sure to be eliminated. The Reagan's government reduction of taxes for the rich moneymakers, which might otherwise have been applied to saving the nation's human security security system, while concurrently also trying to increase the annual amount of armaments, appropriations to a $150 billion level, shows how absolutely ruthlessly the directors of the supranational colossus are determined to acquire their own super arms protection against communism, while realistically making hundreds of billions of dollars a year manufacturing their armaments, while also running their lives, slow murdering of all many millions of U.S. citizen workers to whom the U.S. government has sold insurance of old age and healthy security benefits. Nixon's cutting loose of the price anchorage betrayed all non-wealthy U.S. citizens.
Wow.
The Reagan government has, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question. Does anybody have any have you learned or read about what the politicians of that time had to say about this book and what's being said in here?
No.
This book isn't, this is the first time I'm being exposed to it. I don't think it's been widely read. That's my thought.
But I think Reagan in particular resisted granting him the Medal of Honor.
Oh.
How do you call it in US? The US highest civilian.
The president.
How do you call it? The Medal of Freedom, right?
Presidential Medal of Freedom. Yeah.
Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Wow.
Remember that
somebody could have given it to him posthumous.
Yeah. Remember where Reagan come from, eh? Reagan has acknowledged he moved from the so-called left to right.
Yeah, he was president of the Actors Guild Union. And then there was a big evolution that went on before he got to be president. Yeah. So he was very left, became governor of California, and then got involved with the group. I think we talked about this either from Grunch or I was reading something, got involved with Milton Friedman and a bunch of people. And I remember it was a podcast I was listening to. And he had some major changes go on for him before he got to be president. So yeah. Let's get a little bit further in, and we got a few more minutes we can read.
The Reagan government has reinstated the military draft to raise troops to protect capitalism against communism, while refusing funds to bury the bodies of its appropriations abandoned decreased veterans, which again makes it clear that what was once for the Republican Party of Lincoln is now the party of unmitigated selfishness of big money. We have arrived at an overall economic condition where the seemingly inalienable rights of U.S. citizenship can be enjoyed only in One is the owner of an amount of stocks whose dividends exceed 50,000 annually per individual at the present level of dollar depreciation. The very word inflation is a deliberately deceptive term adopted to exploit the easily misguided human reflex conditioning. It was spontaneously chosen to obscure the fact that not all non-holders of corporate shares are being legally robbed. The U.S. government Treasury, in its almost daily task of arranging for loans from syndicates of banks and brokerage houses for funding and refunding its ever more frequently coming due for payment short and long-term government obligations, finds it's ever more expensive to market even its short-term promissory notes and longer period bonds. Its long-term bonds sell at prices which with interminably accruing interest, having ultimate monetary yields between the price at which they were purchased in the financial market and their face value maturity payoff in the neighborhood of 18%, showing clearly that the financial market world is now assuming that the U.S. government will soon reach a crisis point beyond which it will no longer be able to pay off either its short or long-term obligations. All the big brokerage houses and banks that join in the syndication to handle the sale of the government refunding note sales make so much profit in doing so that they will keep on risking their joint underwriting until they see the moment of formally acknowledged bankruptcy of the nation to be less than a year away. When the score reads 1 trillion and a half, with a debt increasing regularly over 100 billion a year, although that's nothing, somebody is going to see that the emperor has no clothes, and when they shout out to that effect, there will be a swift world acknowledgement of the fact. Then they will try Title 13, which will allow the bankrupt organization to keep on operating and thus terminate any and all risks of private enterprise, for which risking on behalf of human gains it has been given the many considerations such as corporate privileges.
Again,
In the
here,
September,
again here, Bucky underestimates the ability of this giant of the Grunch to mute and then to recruit in order to dilute the equity of a problem. You know, the response to this, what he's saying, what was the response? Was globalization. You see, because at 18% means that you shrink 50% in 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. 72 divided by 18 is 4 years. It means you grow half in size in 4 years. The U.S. at 18% was to grow half in size in 4 years. How to do that? You dilute, you enlarge the pot. So therefore, there is a political and ideological move towards globalizing. And that's what we've had in the past 40 years. Globalizing, that is, you recruit more into the thing, and that's what happened. And the cancer now has moved out and englobing the whole world. So what is the U.S. in 1980 is what we're facing today. And that interest rates are going up because every central bank is like pegged to the U.S. So when the Fed increase rate, we do same here. Europeans do, Japanese do, Chinese do, everybody does. And the debt of the world is at that level. So today we deserve, in order to tame the world, the interest rate got to be at 18%. or 20%. That would be double digit to be able to tame inflation, because inflation is tame when the pain of avoiding the reality is enough to make you accept that reality.
Right.
That's what they call the crash. And interest rate will keep on going up if the same policies are kept until there is a crash. That's why people are saying central bankers are out there to crash the world economy. It's the voodoo economics that's going on. Sorry.
I can't wait till our discussion next week to see what the repercussions are of that Silicon Bank failure on Friday and just see what's going on with this, because that debt of $1 billion is now, as we discovered, is $34 trillion. I mean, Bucky would be rolling over in his grave right now.
You know, Steve, take the icosahedron, right?
Okay.
And pull out one of the edges. Just pull it out and see what happens. What does it do?
It collapses.
Exactly. That's what is happening. And that's what everybody's fearing, that every small thing that collapses in the world, like this Silicon Valley Bank, can collapse the whole system.
Yeah.
Because of extreme leverage, extreme leverage.
Right.
The yields are too low, too low. I mean, the even at 4%, what is the Fed rate today in the US? It's 5%?
6, I think.
Huh? It means that
I
at
think it's
6%,
6.
yes, it means 6% is unable to hold, to balance the book with the real interest rate that we're having, which is in double digit. I mean, just look at how much does, I mean, your basket of food, you know, your staples.
No, it's ridiculous.
You know, just
right
compare
now.
last year to this year, and this is something that
No,
you
I
eat
mean-
every day. Is a big chunk of your gross house product.
Yeah. The good news is we're on page 48 of 57 pages, so we're almost done with this. So
Yeah, but to me, it's gloomy, but it's reality.
It's only 57.
Wake up, people.
only
Wake
57 pages in my PDF file. So I assume that's 57 pages left in the
Yeah, it's a small book. It's not big. This is a book.
Yeah.
It's so small. But what I'm saying, wake up, read and reread it, because it is, in my opinion, so current and so relevant.
Yep.
Many people, I mean, you think the so-called educated people, even educated in economics, don't understand this.
Right now, they don't.
They're singing,
They're not taught this.
Yes, they're spinning the same phase of the economic complex. Yeah, you have this guy is 20 faces. This is 20. 5, and 10 here. That's 20 faces. You are here, maybe between these two. That's where you are spinning. Like that. It doesn't tell you anything about what's going on here. If this does this, what do? You don't see it. It's destroyed there, but you are still spinning here. Wake up.
Thank you. So Anne, how are you feeling and what's your takeaway today? Anne?
Sorry. Oh, right.
Right, we're ready to close it out. How are you feeling? What's your takeaway today?
Right. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna leave this very thoughtful. Quite a okay, more because it's like I think there's let me look at it as a challenge, right? As a challenge as to what it is that we can do to make sense of it for people, and on our part, to what is it that we need to make sure we are doing in order to survive this, yeah, or to thrive in this without practicing the this this system that has been created, I feel like we can't, like we're stuck in it, and like we have to play this. So what's the way out? So that's the one I'm going to be very thoughtful about, okay, over the week. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Joe, how do you feel, and what is your takeaway today?
I feel pretty tired. I appreciate everybody being here, and I appreciate you allowing me to read. I'm tired, and I know that didn't necessarily come off as smoothly as I would have liked it to, but I appreciate the ability to build stamina, and so I thank you for that. And I used to know this, a little bit better, and it reminds me that I need to go back and revisit a lot of the things that I used to read and study when it comes to understanding the times, the economic times, especially as Minot had said, was that the glorious 50 years, or I forget the exact term that was used in the 1950s, that they or a glorious even post-war to about 1980, until they ran into some problems, and to study that period, because a lot of people reference that period, and everybody has a different opinion as to what went wrong. And I think Bucky's opinion is unique. I think that, even just the mentioning of the Gilkey Harbor Islands, Islesboro, Maine meeting is something I'd never heard of. So that's, these are types of things that I really need to go back and revisit this book, highlight it, and really think about and form my own opinion. That's what I need to do. So that's my takeaway, is I really need to go back into looking into this, and to thinking about inflation more. I also appreciated the microtransactions and the ability to make those, and I think that that's actually something that I hope you really get started, because I think that that has a lot of potential, especially for if there are women in poverty. That's a very worthwhile endeavor. So Manu, how are you doing? What's your takeaway?
I just do think that what we're discussing here is so important. Mm-hmm. And I also just have to realize that none of this is taught in the mainstream schools. None. Mm. Even people who go deep in economics, they don't know about these things. And Bucky has been able to have this in-depth and global view of it, of the issue, just because they apply also what we say. That is, you go from the macro to the micro. And it's of interest that the last chapter that we're going to read of this book is called Can't Fool Cosmic Computer. Can't fool it. So it is of vital importance that we do understand this, and that we can explain as much as we can, because there's nobody else that is carrying this thing. And I don't know where, I haven't heard, I don't know, there are some fora where these things are discussed, but I don't think these ideas, which are to me fundamental, are being kind of ventilated the way they have to be for most people to learn. You are an individual against a grunge. And most people don't realize it. We are floating without any direction, without knowing anything. If we knew this, you could go back to the wisdom. As I say, I don't know where, in which forum I was saying here, I was in Wednesday thing that all of these things, they take you back to a good strategy that wise people have applied for millennia, and that allowed them to live good, productive, and impactful lives. And that you have to stretch as much as you can in history and forward and understand the global, and then come back and apply it practically. And practically means that because it is complex, dynamic, and adaptive all the time, and it's cycling, you can only do the best that you can at the moment. And the product of what you're doing, you use it wisely. That is, you use what is necessary to use, and then you spare what will allow you to live another day and allow the people to live other days. This is true for the individual, true for communities, true for nations, and true for the world. It holds, it has held all the way up to us here. Wise people are people that know and people that practice. And the practice is in a way that it is regenerative. That's what I take away, no less than this. Steve, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Well, I'm noticing the time, and I guess maybe I was feeling tortured by that book. We maybe could have read another paragraph, but
I think so.
yeah, but at the same time, it's time, I need to open my window and get some fresh air in the room.
And we lose an hour tonight.
And we lose an hour tonight. Yeah, see, that's even more important that we end this 10 minutes early so that we can at least get 50 minutes. Well, we're 10 minutes better off. This idea of this, what I'm really excited about is that as bad as it was when Bucky was writing this book, it's even worse now, and I'm doing okay. And a lot of it's because maybe I've tuned into personal accountability, and I've reduced my footprint on the planet substantially. I also am thinking today, one of my things was, man, I was lucky. I built a real estate empire in the 80s and 90s. I mean, I really got the benefit of all that hocus pocus that was going on. And now we're maybe not, we're going to continue the hocus pocus, but it seems like that there is this accountability. What I'm excited about is human nature. I'm excited about me, and no matter what's going on around me, I'm going to be okay. I'm excited for Joe. I'm excited for Anne. I'm excited for Manu. I think we're going to be okay. And I think that our clarity of individual mission and purpose, I know everybody on this call shares that, that we're going to share that with the people around us. And when the shit hits the fan, we're going to say, okay, breathe deep. What do we have in front of us? Let's take care of the tetrahedron that's in front of us. We don't have to worry about all those guys. So I am leaving as kind of, I loved it when Anne said, well, we're not just going to survive this. We're going to thrive in all this, and I'm not sure there's a way out, but I know there's a way through, and we're going to make it through. We're going to do really good. And I think the greed thing, I think human race, the whole greed thing is, we really got to calm down. We got to turn down the greed gland. I need to be happy to live in a smaller house. I need to not waste so much water every day. We're having major issues over water in Utah, water. And the guy who, in fact, predicted the crash in 2008, he left commodities and went into water. He sees water as the big issue of the future. So, but
talking about Michael Berry.
Yeah, I'm really, I think that's his name, Joe. You may have it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really have a lot of faith in me. I have a lot of faith in you guys, and I have a lot of faith in the human spirit. So I'm going to take away and say the human spirit will survive
Yeah.
and thrive. I'm going to use and
Yeah.
words. It'll thrive. We'll thrive.
Yes.
Cool. We're only like 11 minutes ahead of the game, so life is good.
Yeah.
Claim 11 minutes of your clock. Okay.
Okay, guys.
All right. What is
Take
Yeah.
that?
care.
That's just a story I recently heard not too long ago, regarding about Arizona developers, running into water issues.
Yeah, it's happening everywhere.
So
Yeah, and Arizona's in a crisis right now because they've got hundreds of acres of ground they were trying to develop, and all of a sudden there's no water.
Mm.
right, these developers are like really in trouble right now.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
it
Greed
will be
gland
interesting.
is coming to a halt. The greed juice is like facing reality. I love Manu's reference of Bucky's reference to the cosmic accounting, the cosmic clock, the cosmic.
Mm.
I'm looking forward to that. Actually, I'm really looking forward to covering that.
Good.
Yeah, I am.
All right, everybody.
Okay.
See you next
Take
week.
care.
Y'all.
All right. Bye.